Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Stand Up and Holler. I'm Will Miles with Read and Reaction, and with me today, Brandon Olsen from the Locked On Sports Network. Brandon, how you doing, man?
Wonderful, wonderful. Lockdown took some blows, but but wonderful outside of that.
Well, we'll get to that a little bit, but really wanted to talk more holistically about Florida. Get some opinions from somebody out, well, within the program, but outside the Read and Reaction Network. We've been talking a lot this year about how excited we are. Certainly, the preseason magazine that we have out, it's the most excited we've been about about this season so far. So, just wanted to get your opinion about Florida. Sort of, I think we'll probably start with the defense because I think that's one of those things where you know for years under Billy Napier, we've talked about the defense being the thing that's held him back. And, I guess let's start with that. So, obviously the offense is where a lot of the hype lays. The hope is where a lot of is where a lot of the hope comes from that offensive side of the ball. But when it comes to the defensive side of the ball, do you have like one specific key you're looking for when you're trying to determine is Florida ready to make some sort of leap on that side of the ball?
I mean, I'm mostly looking at the pass rush here. I think that defensive line is potentially one of the best, or not even potentially one of the best. They are one of the best. Like no defensive line really has, I think, just the pure level of talent that Florida has, and they've got returning talent. I feel like there's obvious question marks, I think, at corner, right? Like we know Devin Moore is great when he's healthy, but the best ability is availability, and he hasn't exactly been available. Dijon Johnson, need to see more from him this coming season in coverage. Cormani McLean, is he going to become the Cormani McLean? But I can also look at this pass rush and just say that a great pass rush makes playing corner easier or makes playing anything in coverage easier. And I think that for Florida having the pass rush that you should have in 2025 is at least comforting for the floor of the defense. Where I do think that you could just make enough of an impact there that even if the corners aren't elite or the secondary isn't elite overall, having that elite pass rush can kind of negate some of the questions that you can have about the defense.
Yeah, I mean that pass rush was certainly there at the end of the year, but early in the year it wasn't. I mean, is that a level of talent thing? Is that a guy started to step up at the end of the year? What do you sort of attribute Florida causing way more havoc on the back end? I mean, because you talked about Moore being out. Jason Marshall was out by the time you got to the end of the year, the five-star corner who's now in the NFL. You wound up with Trikweze Bridges having to move from safety to corner because of all the injuries that were going on. So normally you would say that's going to be something that like the pass rush had to step up. Otherwise, the defense was going to struggle. So what is it in your mind that really did allow that to happen? Especially when you think about the LSU game, the Tigers just had four guys on the offensive line drafted to the NFL, one of them in the top five picks. So what was it about Florida's defense where they were able to turn that pass rush around?
I thought part of it was uh, dumbing down the coverage, I guess we'll say. Just sometimes simplifying things on the back end makes everything easier to play, more consistent there. Um, I think not having some players that were coverage liabilities out there definitely helped. Like I don't mean to consistently bash the kid, but like I didn't like the DJ Douglas take. Um, Obviously the start of the year was very brutal for him until he was off, but I do think that a lot of it stemmed from Caleb Banks taking that next step of just, I mean, pure dominance. What he did in the LSU game was just borderline disrespectful. I just want to throw that one out there. Like, because when you watch the LSU game, Caleb Banks is living in the backfield. And every time he's near Garrett Nussmeier, he's talking to Garrett Nussmeier. Like if they're in the backfield and it's an incompletion and they got to get back to the line of scrimmage, Caleb Banks is walking next to Garrett Nussmeier, just talking about whatever he's talking about. I'm assuming he's not being super polite about it, but I do think that a lot of it stemmed from Caleb Banks dominating on the interior. And then that opened up things for Tyreak Sapp, who was very consistent all year. He wasn't explosive, didn't make the splashy plays, but he was consistently winning his battles all year. And that helped George Gums as well open up. And I think that a lot of it stemmed from Caleb Banks. We've seen college and NFL teams really start to value interior pass rushing more. We've seen them, the quickest way from point A to point B is a straight line. And well, when you've got just a few feet between the quarterback and the defensive lineman, makes it a lot easier than needing to bend around an offensive tackle. And Caleb Banks opened things up with his ability to rush the passer. And also, he wasn't a great pass rusher. I'm not going to pretend that he was. But Cam Jackson stepping up as a pass rusher, just providing a little bit of a threat was huge. Again, I don't think that he did anything spectacular, but for a guy that when he said he was coming back to Florida, I said I didn't really get it because I thought he was a fantastic nose tackle in terms of just playing two gap and not making splash plays, but just not allowing anything. Um, but I said, hey, if you can prove that you're some kind of pass rusher, then you can help yourself. And I mean, he went from what, two pressures in 2023 to 15 or 16 in 2024, and it's an insane jump from him. And it did help his draft stock and helped him kind of work his way up there. So I do think that a lot of it stemmed from Caleb Banks. Other people just stepped up a bit around him too, and the amount of attention that Caleb Banks forced opposing offenses to give him, I think that helped open things up for everybody.
Well, so that's an interesting question, right? Because you've got obviously Jack Pyburn transferring to LSU. You've got some of the guys that you mentioned, Jackson especially now off to the next step. A defensive line is not two guys, right? We talk about Banks, we talk about Sapp, but there's going to have to be people around him. Who are you anticipating can be a difference maker on the outside, or even just maybe not even a difference maker, maybe just draw enough attention that the game plan can't be double team one of those two guys and take them out, and then, just leave your left tackle alone with the defensive end. So who are you looking for? Or maybe there's a couple of people you're looking for on that defensive line to step up and be able to provide that smidge, as you said, of pass rush, or maybe even be a real pass rusher. And now all of a sudden you've got more than one threat coming off that front four.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked what I saw from Cam James last year. I thought there were times where Cam James just looked like he might be putting things together right now and really becoming that dominant pass rusher that we've been looking for. Obviously, he's not there. I'm not going to pretend he is, but just the flashes matter to me a lot when we're talking about a young guy that is hopefully taking a bigger step into the defense this year. I don't really know exactly where those snaps are going to come from situationally. Florida lost a lot of snaps in the edge room from last year to this year, right? TJ Searcy's gone, Jack Pyburn's gone. Justice Boone didn't play a ton, but still averaged what, 12 snaps a game, something like that. So, I mean, you're losing a good bit of snaps there, and Cam James can step up. Maybe one of the true freshmen. Is LJ McCray going to become the LJ McCray that we've been looking for? Which I do think that there were some people that expected, more from him, and I don't know how you fully can. I don't think he played poorly, but also I felt like he was one of those freshmen where it's like, hey, he's got an insanely high ceiling, and if you can get him to hit, then that's going to be awesome. But it's probably going to take a little bit. Jamari Lyons on the interior too. Like, is he going to be what prior to his injury we thought he was going to be? And we really have no true definitive answer of if he's going to be a strong defensive lineman for this team, strong in terms of quality. Obviously, we know he's physically strong. I would never challenge a man that big to a test of strength because I would lose that 10 times out of 10. But is he going to step up as a strong impact player now that we expect him to be last year? But of course, he missed the entire season. And there's quite a few guys that can open up. I will say this. I wasn't a huge fan of taking in Kofi Asari out of UMass, but from reports that we've heard, they seem to really like him and have been impressed with some of the stuff that they've seen. So is he going to be the guy that can step up? I know that he played plenty of reps against SEC defenses last or SEC offenses last year because for some reason UMass basically played an SEC schedule for a decent portion of the season. But I think that right now you're at a point where you've got three proven guys in the defensive line and Tyreak Sapp, Caleb Banks, George Gums. Um, And then it's just about finding another guy to add to the mix. And while I think Jamari Lyons might be a worse overall run defender than Cam Jackson, I do think he has better pass rushing potential than Cam had.
And so you talked about simplifying things when it came to the overall defense and the defensive structure. Certainly, that was a hallmark of defensive coordinator Ron Roberts when he was at Baylor, especially, and then sort of carried that over to Florida. One of the places I think that really had an impact was at the safety position. So I'm curious to get your take on that room for Florida this year. Obviously, it was a place you mentioned DJ Douglas already. I mentioned Triquez Bridges. Um, they had Asa Turner come in as well. Like a place they hit heavily in the transfer portal coming into 2024. Less so coming into 2025. They're sort of going with the guys they brought. They got one guy coming in at corner, but really the defensive back room is not a place where they've hit heavily in the transfer portal, which either means they trust in them or it means there's some holes that haven't been filled. So I guess which one's your opinion? Is it in the defensive back room, specifically safety, is that a place where Florida and their staff should be comfortable trusting the guys who are there, or do you think there are still some holes there?
I don't think it's a bad room, but I will say that behind Bryson and Jordan Castell, I mean, do we know what that's going to look like truly behind them? Do we know what that's actually going to, who's going to step on the field there as safety three, and we know what we're getting? Because if it's one of the freshmen who I think everybody's very excited for, I don't think we have an answer of what they're going to be. I know that I would have preferred that they went into the portal and got a portal safety for this class, but I like what Bryce Thornton does. I think that he's an incredibly smart defensive player. I think he puts himself in good positions, and I think that he makes plays that fans love seeing. Jordan Castell, he's had his moments where he's just like because Jordan Castell also is someone who, when he came in as a true freshman, ended up leading the team in snaps as a true freshman there, or leading the defense or near the top, and that was a big selling point was that he got all that experience, and so he should be taking a big jump in year two. And then it didn't really feel like he took that jump. Then it didn't feel like he really opened up and took those next steps. But I do think that he still contributed in valuable ways. I do think that he still was a leader on this team, and I do think that using him in different ways kind of helped him. And I would like to see them continue to use him in different ways. I think that both of them benefited from playing more too high and just letting you work that way. And I think that Jordan Castell, I feel like this is more likely the year where you would see a jump than it was last year. Because I do think last year was a lot of people doing the thing that fans do of, oh, a true freshman played a lot and wasn't god awful. So he should be really great next year. It's like the video game thing of, well, we played a kid a lot. He can only get better from here. And I just don't think that's how it works. I think that's my stance is that video games have helped ruin football discussion about young football players because you just go, just play them a lot. They'll get better because in a video game, they get XP. They don't get their confidence shaken and they don't get rattled or an injury doesn't derail things. And so I think that a lot of the discussion is just play the young guy and it'll be great. And nothing can possibly go wrong. But I do think that, trial by fire isn't always the best way. So I think Jordan Castell this year is more likely to take a jump than he was last year. And if he doesn't, like let's say he doesn't take a big jump and he just improves incrementally or stays relatively the same level. Like I don't think he was bad last year. I don't think he was spectacular. I don't think he was bad. I think Bryce Thornton's got a ton of talent. I'm really excited to see Sharif Denton at star again. I would die for Sharif. I just want to throw that out there. I think he's a tremendous football player. And so I think that safety right now, I'm comfortable with the starters. The depth, I will never in my life say that I'm comfortable when there's a very decent chance that you've got two true freshmen as your safety three and safety four, or you're three and four at any position other than, I mean, I'm cool with a freshman QB three or QB four because ideally you don't touch the field at all. But I'm never going to be comfortable relying on freshmen, but I do think that there's a lot of talent there. It's just, well, what are freshmen going to be? I would have very much preferred a veteran safety to come in the portal.
Well, so speaking of taking a leap, this is a place I haven't really heard a lot of discussion, but it's a place that I find interesting. So, Chris Couch was a special teams coach under Billy Napier the first 2 years. Joe Houston comes in last year. Your impressions, other than the special teams mat that has made its way out for road games, which I laugh about and make fun about all the time, but your impressions as to the Gators special teams, and obviously the first couple of years was a significant liability. Was that still true in 2024? Or was it at least like, not a net negative? Or did they actually make it a positive last year? Your impressions about special teams overall and where you think that might be in 2025?
I thought they actually made it a positive. I think one of the things where they got a lot better was simply not screwing up. Like honestly, it was just there were some errors. Like you saw it in the bowl game. We saw quite a few miscues in the bowl game, which I do think was, or I know was partially because of the transfer portal losing guys. Like there was a punt against Tulane that Tulane had a really solid return, and we spoke with Hayden Hansen afterwards, and it was like, hey, like, did you guys screw this up? And he was like, yeah, it was me that screwed up because I've never played that part of special teams before. But because Jack Pyburn left, I had to take his role. And so I've never done that before. And so I screwed it up, and like I was part of why they had that return. But outside of that, like really, I don't think special teams was bad at all last year. I think Trey Smack is way better than I think a lot of people give him credit for. I think a lot of people talk about the Arkansas missed field goal at the end of the game, which was it a makeable kick? Sure, but it wasn't Trey Smack's fault in my opinion
That it
because
was a
he,
fire
he
drill at the end?
yeah, he was perfect that whole year under 40. And that penalty with the illegal substitution, that penalty led to it being past 40. And it's like, well, you were in range where he hadn't missed all year. Not saying that that means he's not going to miss, but you were in range where he was lights out from. And then you screwed it up. And so while yes, it was a makeable kick, and yeah, he probably should have made the kick, I still blame the guys that put the player in the worst position. Um, Jeremy Crawshaw had a great year last year as punter. And look, like I have no problem admitting I like Joe Houston. I have liked Joe Houston. I spoke to quite a few people last year. When he got hired, I brought on two people to talk about Joe Houston's hiring. And one was former Iowa State long snapper Steve Wordle, because Joe Houston was at Iowa State when he was long snapping for Iowa State. Um, and I brought on Toledo kicker Jamison Vest from uh, when I was a freshman in 2014. Joe Houston was at Toledo during that same time, and so Jamison Vest is someone I brought on, and both of them just were glowing about Joe Houston. So I was like, okay, I'm there. I've got two players that said that they loved him, and Jamison Vest specifically was like, yeah, Joe knows how to kick and punt. Like Joe knows how to do these things, and so he can just outright tell you exactly what you need to do, and he can walk you through them. Um, and then also he was a special teams coach for Bill Belichick, and I feel like if you can do that for Bill Belichick, yeah, I want you on my staff, and I'll take you on my staff there. I actually will say that at the Senior Bowl this year, Joe Houston was there. And I saw him speaking with Dave Canales, the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. And in my mind, while I was watching it, I was like, he better not take him. I was like, he better not go take Joe Houston right now, because that's when everybody gets hired. And so I was like, he better not go take Joe Houston. But I think Joe Houston made a huge impact on this team. I think that a lot of it was simply just not making those mistakes. You've got great athletes, like we know it's the University of Florida. You're going to have great athletes, and I think that they kind of helped play into their strengths a little bit. Jeremy Crawshaw also did just he got better at punting. I don't know how to describe it, but he just became a better punter in 2024 than he was in 2023 in terms of uh, hang time. I think that he put people in better positions in terms of giving the coverage team a better chance in 2024. I feel like he helped out there, and it just led to an overall improvement of quality of special teams. And honestly, again, you got 11 guys on the field, a lot more than you did in 2023. And so that alone, like the mat, we can make fun of the mat, but the mat
Matt
worked.
Word.
The mat worked. And in the bowl game, I don't remember seeing the mat, and I do remember seeing penalties on special teams. That's all I'm going to say about the mat for 2024.
All right. Well, so we've sort of preambled with the defense and special teams, but wanted to get your opinion on two things when it comes to the offensive side of the ball, and I think they're pretty interrelated. One is Billy Napier still technically offensive coordinator for Florida. I think a bunch of us thought he kind of survived that wave after the Texas game. Um, in some ways because there was probably going to be some change at that level. But then obviously the savior DJ Lagway comes in, runs off some wins at the end, shows us quite a bit in those last four games, especially on one leg. And so sort of two questions. One, there's been a lot of talk recently. I got into it with one of your Locked On colleagues about DJ Lagway and whether he's overrated or underrated. And
Interesting.
then
Didn't see that.
and then the other aspect of it is, does Billy Napier accentuate what Lagway's trying to do? Or is Billy Napier with Russ Callaway as I guess co-offensive coordinator, I'll call him, are they like would Florida be better off with somebody else calling and designing plays for Lagway? Because it seems like Lagway really likes what Napier and Callaway are trying to do. So obviously there's a balance here, right? You don't want to bring in Bobby Petrino and run something completely different, or Rich Rodriguez or something like that. So your opinions on two things. One, Lagway and maybe the argument around overrated, underrated, where he sits, and then Napier as offensive coordinator, play caller, and sort of those dual roles that he has to play as the head coach on Saturdays as well.
So I think that Lagway was phenomenal for a true freshman last year. I really do. I don't think he was phenomenal overall. I understand if people think he might be getting overrated. I disagree with it right now. But I understand if people think that might be the case because he is getting a ton of hype. But I think the hype is warranted when you watch the film, right? I think the hype is warranted when you see a kid who evades pressure better than already most upperclassmen. I think that the ability to evade pressure is often overlooked, and it's like, I mean, we're at a point now where, and I'm not saying I agree with this stance, but we're at a point now where Ben Johnson, the head coach of the Chicago Bears, is known for being this very analytical guy. He's out here saying, I would rather Caleb Williams throw a pick than take a sack because taking a sack derails your whole drive. It puts you in an uncomfortable position. It takes field position away. It screws you a bunch. And it's like we're at a point now where we've got NFL head coaches valuing, hey, I'd rather you throw a pick than take a sack. And DJ Lagway does a really good job at not taking sacks. And he did it with basically one leg for a good portion of the year, and he was still evading. I mean, you look at that LSU game, and first off, he's making FU throws. Like I don't know what he was on, but he's making FU throws with the arm slot and throwing. I think it was the LSU game with the underhand submarine Darren O'Day screen that he threw. Like it's just nuts stuff to see with the physical talent. And so I think if you want to make the stats argument outside of the deep ball, which is obviously a huge part of DJ Lagway's game, I don't think that it was stellar. But I also think that he's a true freshman who has maybe the hardest part of the game down packed with evading pressure. One of the hardest parts of the game of consistently finding success with the deep ball, because like you can have a huge arm and not be able to consistently connect in the deep ball. How often do we see high school kids? It's like, oh yeah, they got a big arm. You just settle it down, like Max Brown. And it's like we see a high school kid with a big arm, and it's like, yeah, you just settle him down a bit and teach him how to play quarterback, and he'll be great. And it's like, well, that doesn't really happen because having a big arm is nice, but learning how to use it is completely different. And I think that DJ Lagway knows how to use it already. DJ Lagway needs to figure out the underneath stuff better. That's what it is for me. It's just I think he's a tremendously talented quarterback. I think if he were eligible for the NFL draft this coming year, he'd be a top five pick. Just he has all the physical tools that even if it's not a proven product or a finished product at all, his physical tools are impressive enough to warrant taking him wherever you want to take him. Similar to Anthony Richardson, right? Like Anthony Richardson's film was a freaking mess. It was just a train wreck. I remember after the USF game going on my show and going, just run the option. Like just run the option at this point. He can't throw a forward pass. But he went fourth overall because big arm, elite athlete, and teams will see that and go, I can fix anything else. And like teams are going to see DJ Lagway with a big arm, not elite athlete, but still a very good athlete, and they're going to see the kid that is unwavering in difficult situations against elite defenses. I mean, he went out there, and I know that he wasn't, playing the best game of his life against Georgia before getting hurt, but he was leading this team to beating Georgia. And I think that having the big arm that DJ Lagway has opens up the run game. I think this year with a healthy DJ Lagway and specifically a healthy leg for DJ Lagway where he's willing and able to run and make plays on the move or more willing to do that. I think that opens up everything. Like I think that my issue with DJ Lagway's style in 2024 was that it's not sustainable for a full season, just being basically dependent on run game works or we're hitting the deep ball, and that's kind of all we have. I think that that's not very sustainable, but I'm also not concerned about it because he was a true freshman doing the difficult things. And when he's healthy, his legs will help supplement, maybe not being a great underneath passer right now. If he's willing to make more plays with his legs, you're making the defense respect underneath in some way. And I think that that'll help in long term, just open up more for this offense. I don't know. I can see why people would think he's being overrated. I don't think he is, though. I think he's just a really freaking talented young quarterback, and I think that it's perfectly fine to be excited for it. Like big arm, great kid. I mean, has anyone ever said a negative thing about DJ Lagway? Like, so I understand it. I really disagree with people thinking he's underrated because of his completion percentage and touchdown to interception ratio. I don't care. The things that I'm going to value and judge a quarterback off of is the film. And so I think the film looks really freaking good. And so I'm not concerning myself with that part, honestly, at all.
So real quick, Napier, overrated, underrated, properly rated as a play caller. What's your like? What's the symbiosis there between him? Is Lagway going to make him look like an elite play caller, or can he actually supplement what Lagway's trying to do? And the two of those guys be better than the parts.
I don't think Napier's a bad play caller. I'll say that. I think that he makes some boneheaded decisions in certain situations. For me, I think the bigger issue is that I don't think that it's very possible right now to be both a good head coach and at the same time be a good offensive play caller. I think that we've consistently seen guys struggle to do that, and I think that for Florida, the benefit would be having Billy Napier be the head coach and not the play caller, because also the amount of times that we've seen this team simply not show up in Billy Napier's tenure. And that's what it is for me. It's not showing up, clock mismanagement. Like the Arkansas game, 100% on the coaching staff. I don't care if Trace Mack missed 45 kicks in that game. That's coaching staff was horrible. Like I remember seeing them burn two timeouts, and Graham Mertz is the one walking to the sideline yelling. And at no point should your quarterback be the guy that's upset about using timeouts. Like that's not the quarterback shouldn't be the guy doing that. The head coach should be the guy that's mad about that. Um, Tennessee last year. I don't know how anyone else feels about it. I thought that Florida should have gone for two at the end of the game. I think you were way more like first off, if you're gonna say you're an analytics coach, I think analytics tell you to go for it in that situation. I think that people that dislike analytics don't understand analytics because analytics isn't telling you to be more conservative. Analytics, I think more often than not, is telling you, yeah, be more aggressive. Like you're gonna get you've got a higher chance of winning that way. And I think analytics is going to tell you to go for two. It's going to tell you to go for it on fourth down more often than people, just using their gut, and people think that analytics are going to tell you to be conservative. It's not. And so I think you should have gone for two at the end of that game. I also feel like even outside of analytics, your gut should have told you to go for two at the end of that game because you were like eventually Tennessee was going to score a touchdown and you were struggling to do that. Up until that last touchdown throw by DJ Lagway, you were struggling to do that. And so I think that eventually Tennessee was going to score a touchdown and you didn't want to get into field goals or the 2-point conversion battle. You didn't want to be in that situation. So I think going for two there was the smart move. Um, Being as underprepared as this team was for Miami in 2024, for Utah in 2023, stuff like that. Like, I think that you would just benefit a lot more from Billy Napier giving up play calling duties because I think it would make him a lot better of a head coach. I'm not saying that I love his style. I'm not saying that I love his play calling. I don't think that his play calling is necessarily the issue for me. I think it's because look, and also you can go back to Billy Napier's career. He likes to throw the deep ball. He likes to run the ball, throw the deep ball, give you easy completions underneath. Like that's what he has usually looked for. At least that's what I feel like I've seen from him throughout his career. Is that's what he's kind of trying to look for. Whether or not he's always had the talent to do so is a different conversation. But I think that that's what he's liked to do for a lot of his just career, and not just at Florida, but throughout his entire tenure, or his entire career. And I don't think that he's an awful play caller. I think that a lot of it stems from I don't think you can necessarily be a great play caller and a great head coach at the same time in 2025, especially with how insane roster management is, and that's part of your job there. And so I think that Florida would benefit a lot more from him giving up play calling. You can keep the system the same. I'm fine with you doing that. Just let Russ call the plays, add some air raid stuff to the mix. I will say that it gets really tiring hearing people go, well, look what Russ did against Florida in 2021. Because Russ wasn't at Samford in 2021. And so I keep seeing people bring that up, and that's not a good argument because it's not true. But he is still that air raidy style guy. I'd be fine, and we did see them add a little bit of an air raid, I'll say twang to the offense last year, and I would like to see them keep doing that. Like give play calling to Russ, let him run your system with a little bit of a twist to it, and I think that your team would be a lot better because I think that you as a head coach would be a lot better.
Well, Brandon, we'll leave it at that. Thanks so much for coming on. We're going to do a little home and home here. I'll be over on your podcast this week as well. Why don't you tell Gators fans where they can find that?
Yeah, we're gonna be on Locked On Gators, anywhere you find your podcast audio or on YouTube every day, 3 a.m. audio, 8 a.m. Eastern time on YouTube.
All right. And just a reminder, everybody, you can pick up the Read and Reaction magazine over at readandreaction.com/mag. 70 plus pages, Florida only preview magazine. Go pick it up over there. Thanks, everybody, for joining us for another episode of Stand Up and Holler. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to Stand Up and Holler. If you're interested in more information from me and Nick, you can go over to readandreaction.com. You can like and subscribe our YouTube channel here at Read and Reaction, or you can go to patreon.com/readandreaction to support us, get extra information, and we do Ask Anythings over there every once in a while as well. So check us out. Thanks for listening.